afternoon, everybody. It gives me great pleasure here to be hosting a panel which is going to focus on youth fintech and the emergence of more young people entering a sector which is growing leaps and bounds. I'd love to welcome my panelists here today. I have Ching, who's the director, Sandbox-Ngee at Poly. I have Dr. Tan, who's the CEO of AiDa Technologies, and I have Renyi, who's the Senior Vice President, Head of L&D and Culture at Prudential Assurance. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. Great. Let me kick off. Yes, let me kick off by putting a question to all of you, because I know that each one of you have done immense amount of work in this area in the last couple of years and have some very interesting personal stories to share in your own way. So I think I'll start with Ching. Why do you think this is the right time, for the youth to come into the fintech sector, and why fintech?
Right. I remember that journey started. The seed of plantation started in 2016 when fintech was still in its infancy, and everybody is asking, what is this buzzword fintech about? So when we first approached, I think MAS then, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, they have just started their fintech innovation group. So we told the Chief Fintech Officer, Mr. Supnendu Mohanty, that we have a group of students who are always hungry to learn, to find out what's happening in the industry, and what best way is to involve the fintech innovation group together with the industry collectively. That's how we came up with the PolyFinTech100 initiative involving the 5 polys. And as I look back now, wow, I mean, year after year, we have participated in the FinTech Festival, and cumulatively, more than 5,000 students have gone through the whole FinTech journey. In fact, this morning, we just held the 3rd edition of the PolyFinTech API Hackathon right in our new space in Agile on MP campus this morning.
Great. Now, congratulations on the new space that you guys have just opened up. Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Tan, I'm going to come to you. I mean, you had some very interesting stories to share with me when we spoke earlier in the week, and how AiDa has been working with students. So, I mean, lovely for you to say how this, even happened. Why did you consider, and what has been the experience?
Well, every year we take in a number of students from various polytechnics, including the startup factory. They come in quite raw, they get thrown into the deep end. Important thing is if they have some basic skills, they have the right attitude, willing to learn, then they can learn a lot and contribute as well. Our interns have come to work for us, have actually spent time on site in customers' location, helping us do work. I think the exposure they got is tremendous. And actually, we look forward to have a continuous stream of these students. I think it's a win-win situation for everybody.
Absolutely. I think each of us have seen that the growth of this industry. Renyi, if I can come to you, you guys do work very closely with the PolyFinTech100 and several initiatives within Prudential. So, what would you like to add from a Prudential perspective on, the involvement with the youth so far?
Yeah, thanks, Anu. And maybe if I could use the analogy by Ching actually about the seed, it's a great one actually. I think, Prudential, obviously, we are part of the financial services industry, right? And I think it's a natural extension almost that we have to be committed to growing the fintech industry. And I think a huge part of that has been driven by, I think, our trust towards innovation, right? It started probably about 3 years ago now, so 2018, thereabouts, whereby, we looked at ourselves and thought about what we needed to pivot, moving out from traditional insurance to almost like a larger space on wellness and, like you mentioned, fintech. So I think our commitment really is to not just to help facilitate that growth of the industry, but I think also give a little bit back to the fintech industry as a whole, right? Because it's growing and developing even as we speak.
Absolutely, and I think it's very exciting times for people who are graduating, who are looking for jobs. It's a completely new sector coming up. and there's a lot of opportunity there. So I think I'm going to go back to Ching, right? Again, I think the institutes of higher learnings, are working with various industry partners. And, we've seen over time that this is an extremely collaborative effort. You guys have played a very, very crucial role, So, again, what has been the feedback from students? What have been some of the challenges, that you kind of, hear often from them, and how do you really overcome these challenges?
Okay, so if we take a step-by-step approach, for the first instance, of course, a few of them may not know what exactly is fintech. So what we do is we organize learning journeys. We organize talks by people like Dr. Tan himself. He has come down to our session roadshow, whereby he shared what exactly is all these things that the industry are working on, the AI, the projects and things like that. And the students have learned along the way. I think the best way to learn is to immerse yourself in the job. So I'm very happy to see companies like Prudential, Dr. Tan, they have continuously give us good job opportunities or internship opportunities for the students. So the students will go deep dive into the job. So whatever they have learned on curriculum, they are exposed even to a greater extent when they work. So they say that the fastest way to learn is when you're immersed in the job, right? I can't agree more. I can't agree more. So Dr. Tan has taken students. I think one of the very first students that he has taken is Bobby. Bobby has even gone to Indonesia to do a sales pitch together with his superior, and then he has gone on to continue working in AiDa while doing his part-time studies. So the other case of Renyi in Prudential, when Prudential decided to open up the doors for Polytechnic students, we were the first to grab to say that, hey, let us know what role is there. And I still remember the first boy who went in, he was a chatbot trainer. So before that, all of us may not know what is a chatbot, but I heard that he did a good job, and in the end, he passed on his skills or his knowledge to his fellow colleagues in Prudential. I think that's a very nice story that we want to hear. That is a two-way process. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely great. I mean, what an inspiring story. Dr. Tan, since you have played a very integral role here, anything you'd like to add in terms of any anecdote, any personal experience that you've witnessed?
I would say because we do find the stream of talent from the polytechnics to be quite useful. I'll tell you what works and what will not work, right? For companies like ourselves, we are very tech heavy. We need people with some sort of background on programming, right? If you have some programming skills, then I think you are on a good start. But we don't need you to be a master, right? And nobody expects you to be a master coming out from poly, right? So there's a sweet spot where you need to be. You need to know the basics. You need to understand the concepts. But nobody expects you to master, right? We have realistic expectation about what you can do and what you cannot do. And when you come in, we have mentors who will guide you, right? So most important is to have the right mindset, that you are there to learn, and then you'll find, hopefully, I believe our environments are a very friendly one, but we have a very high expectations that you work very hard, right? If you are willing to work very hard, our people will support you, and then you come along and you grow. Actually, we have taken in, I think, over the last few years, more than 10, I think. And of this more than 10, I would say majority have now either come on and then they've gone on to do higher studies, either part-time or full-time. Of course, the young men have now all gone on to do MS, and many have not expressed interest to want to come back and so on. So I think we have actually helped grow them. But the most important thing is some basic skills and a very can-do, willing to learn mindset. If you have that mindset, you will find.
Half a better one. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's a great piece of advice there. Having the right mindset, and the attitude takes you into anything new. I'm going to straight jump to Renyi, because I know that Prudential, has over the years rolled out several programs. One of your very interesting programs is the PolyFinTech100 partnership program. So maybe, you know, I mean, anything there that you would like to tell us on how this program came about and, you know, what does it intend to do and the opportunities for the youth there?
Yeah, sure. So I think Anu, the premise of this is, you know, we have a purpose statement in the organization. So our purpose is really to innovate to help everyone live well. So if you kind of, I think the anchor of everything that we do is actually innovation. And I think we see the Proof Integrate program that you spoke about as really like a means of a little bit of what I mentioned earlier, like helping to also grow the fintech industry, working with, you know, institutions such as, you know, Ching and great partners to kind of like not just we benefit from getting the great skills and intelligence from these interns, but actually also getting, I might say it's actually two ways. You know, they give ideas. The personas of, you know, the Gen Zs are actually something that we actually could know a little bit more about our customers, right? So I think there's always that dual benefits that the organization receives from these students, and as well, of course, the students get the practical experience. So a little bit of the Proof Integrate program, it's actually geared towards, you know, crowdsourcing for, I would say, like solutions from people around fintech. So, you know, we have two tiers, right? One that has kind of getting ideas, but the other one taking it further to maybe almost like a proof of concept. Yeah. In addition, I think there's two other programs, the Prudential Young Trailblazers, right, which we has been running for 3 years now, and that really works with, you know, the institutions, the students, and the Polytechnic students, and we invite them to actually, you know, pitch for their problem statements, and Prudential comes in from a point of having our members of the leadership team mentor some of these project teams to actually bring out real solutions. So I think not only do we learn a little bit more about that very important segment, which is going to be the future, but we actually do get some really great solutions out of them as well.
Wow, that's extremely interesting. Wow. I'm going to go back to Ching again, you know, to start with, you know, again, you work so much with the students day in and day out, right? So I'm sure there are certain common notions, stereotypes, you know, that the students come up and, you know, question about fintech. Are there any fears, you know, of if it being a very risky industry or sector to go into? Do they still prefer to go into the more traditional sectors? And how do you, you know, really answer that and tackle with that?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Anu. So in fact, I think when you talk about internship, right, in the past, I think traditionally, for those who are taking a diploma in banking and finance, they will typically go into corporate banking, treasury, investment banking. So when we talk to the students nowadays, we say that expand your horizon. Think of the possibilities of how financial technology come together and what kind of newer technologies and innovation that you can come out of it. So a lot of these students, besides working in those traditional roles, they have started to take attention about those innovation labs that we talk about. I think in the fintech, we hear a lot about innovation labs. So when we do the innovation lab cross and they have the exposure to them, I think that kind of uncertainty or fear sort of it will not be there anymore, because they see that, hey, there are actually people working in all these innovation labs. So it's not something from fiction or something that is out of the blue. So I still remember one of the very first innovation lab that was ready then, and we brought the students groups by groups across the 5 polys, was the Visa Innovation Lab at Robinson Road, which is very close to the ATRR. I think that really opened the eyes of the students. You mean there is such a thing called an innovation lab where different disciplines come together, they learn and they explore and they co-create ideas. I think through all these innovation labs, through the workshops and the domain experts and the mentors who have brought into the campus, it's sort of dispelled the notion that they have. In fact, nowadays, we have students who walk into Sandbox office. Do you have any fintech internship roles that you can offer me? So that kind of environment has changed, and I think students are more receptive towards it eventually.
Wow, that's superbly encouraging.
Yeah.
And I mean, we have 2 great examples here, Dr. Tan and Renyi, who are part of the industry and, you know, who've been there from day one. And I think it's a huge, you know, I mean, case study example for students to refer to. You know, and again, I'm going to come back to Dr. Tan to ask you, you know, when you take on an intern, and they stay with you during that period. I'm sure there are a lot of questions that come up in terms of my scope of work, what am I really here to do, and what are some of the common questions that you guys handle as a company.
Sure. So one of the issues that people may be concerned about is can a poly student fit in? Would they know enough? Can they do the work and so on, right? So in the early days, we are also not certain. In fact, you look at my organization, we have more than 10 PhDs in the company. Will they fit in and so on? Fortunately, the answer is yes, right? We are developing real solutions that go into banks or insurance companies. And when we develop a solution, just like you build a house, or build a car, you need all the components to be there, right? You need windscreen wiper, you need a door, you need suspension, and so on. So there are a variety of things that we need to do to make the house, build the whole thing together. And while we build, so there's a part where I have the very serious data scientists that have to go build the algorithms, but I also have people who need to do a visualization. I also need people who do testing and so on, right? So there are plenty of opportunities whereby I need people with the basic skills and hardworking, willing to learn, and then they can contribute. And through that contribution, they are also learning, and we also get a lot of value out of them, right? And then after they learn, we upgrade the work that they can do. So, we're crazy to throw them in to try and do a design from day one, but do work with people to learn how to do something. And once they learn how to do something, we increase the level of complexity and amount of load, right? We basically throw you more and more until really then you find that you are doing the work of other employees, right? Yeah.
Renyi, to come back to you, have you faced situations where, when you've taken on, the young into your programs, do they come and tell you that, oh, this is not what I really came for, or this is more than exciting, and this has been a great opportunity? What's the reaction?
Yeah, actually, Anu, the reaction is almost like this is exciting and can we do more, right? So we have our value proposition for the company is actually to create something new, right? So that again is anchored in innovation. And I think when the intern population joins us, and we do take in huge cohorts of both interns across different institutes, and I would say that the Polytechnic students that we have worked with, one thing that I think we really enjoy is they actually have that practical knowledge of both education, of course, which is extremely important, but also the industry side of things. And I think the environment that we are trying to build here, at least in Prudential, where we want to try new things, and in fact, when we do fail, we actually do want to learn from those things. And one of the things we've always been trying to talk about is celebrating failures openly, right? And I think Ching spoke about the intern who was in the chatbot theme, right? We have many interns who come back to us, to Prudential, right? And I think that's always a good sign, because if you enjoyed your first internship and you choose to come back again for a second stint, then there's probably something that they liked there, right? And I think there's the intent is always to convert some of these interns when they finish school, right, to full-time employees, like Dr. Tan spoke about. So I think these interns are actually very much a part of the organization. They do actually real projects and initiatives like Dr. Tan spoke about.
Great. No, very interesting. And again, I'm going to come back to you, Renyi, with my next question, which is, insurance has always been considered to be a very traditional sector, very, very heavy on, human interaction. But we've been seeing a lot of, digitalization happening there in the last few years. Prudential has been taking, a pretty strong stand there. So, again, when you reach out to the young, people, how do they perceive it? Do they perceive it to be an interesting sector to go into? Do they see a lot of innovation happening there? What's the reaction?
I think the reality, Anu, is actually when people, and you're right, people perceive insurance to be almost like the poorer cousin sometimes of financial services, right? They think about the banks, and like Ching spoke about the asset management fund and fund places, but I think, and I speak from Prudential's point of view, if you looked at for example, the workplace environment we've been trying to build, the virtual background behind is an example. we have an open office concept, right? And this wasn't something that was started recently. It's been part of the organization for many years, and I think it actually also reinforces the fact that we want people who join the company and actually feel free to innovate on ideas and initiatives, right? And from an innovation point of view, there are programs specifically. For example, one program is the Design Doers, whereby we get employees to actually be a part of real business projects in the organization, and they see through a project from prototyping to actually implementation, right? And when I mean the employee, it actually includes interns who are in the particular department as well. So I think the initial impression, yeah, maybe people have that perception, but I think we choose to kind of get them to be immersed in the work, right? And I think very quickly I would like to say we convert them quite quickly. And I think we have participated in a couple of studies in previous years, right? And we've kind of validated that view because people do see Prudential as a pretty attractive company to work for. Yeah.
Very interesting. I mean, a lot of opportunities there compared to where we were 5 years ago. So it's really for people to go and tap these opportunities. I'm going to come to you, Dr. Tan. I know AiDa does, conducts and launches several interesting programs. Again, to upskill, provide various opportunities, for the youth. And then it has, evolved over the years. So anything that you want to highlight here at this point? So if there's somebody listening out there, on what they see as an opportunity that could be attractive for them.
Right. So maybe I'll talk a bit about the finance industry, fintech, and so on. The whole industry is going through sort of huge transformation. This transformation is enabled by technology, digitization, AI, right? Blockchain. So there's a lot of new technologies that's getting infused into the system. And if you're a young man wondering, what will you do with your life and so on, this is a good sector to come in because there are plenty of things to learn, and you are at the beginning of the journey, right? So if you come to a place, any place where you can get exposure, and what kind of exposure do you want? You want exposure that give you an idea of what the industry is like, right? Idea of how innovative technology is being used to transform the industry and make something better, right? So if, for example, you have AI, how is AI being used? Is it used to give you more better targeting of your customers? Is it used for automation or used to detect fraud? So AI can be used in so many ways, right? So, but if you're studying, you read about it. If you work in a company, you see in action, and then you are lucky enough to be working on a product, and then maybe you can also, because as a poly person, actually depending on your capability and depending on how hard you work, initially you just get exposure, and that's actually fine. Then second, you start to maybe work on something and say perhaps do the visualization. Then if you get better, then you'll find that you do some data management, right? Data cleansing and so on. So again, I would say usually they come to us for 6 months. Then depending on how they take on, the more you take on, well, more and more get thrown at you, and until Bobby is now a full-time employee, we trust him with everything we do. He takes care of a particular area, and it goes on, right? And then with that kind of skill and experience, you're free to go anywhere. You have exposure, you know the business, you know the vertical, you also know the technology, right?
Wow. Very interesting. They start to gather awareness on fintechs, this industry, this sector. So as an educationist, do you think there's an opportunity to start nurturing their interest from a younger age, or is poly really the time for them to be exposed to sectors like fintech, or is it too late when they start asking you these questions?
I think, thanks for asking, Anu. That's a very good question, which we constantly contemplate and think about it in the polys. So just to let you know that in the case of polys, we have started to go down to the secondary school. So when we talk to the secondary school students, you will be amazed that they are very, very interested in many aspects about technology, about finance, finance sector as a whole. Companies like Prudential has also gone to target the secondary schools by holding competitions or hackathons. So the same for us. Our different schools will have those outreach programs whereby they reach out to the students from the secondary schools. And in our case, in the case of Sandbox, where my department is based, we have an outreach program that we, when COVID struck, right, we can never meet them face to face. We used to do learning journeys to our office whereby they will say, oh, this is Sandbox, oh, this is the Makers Academy, oh, you mean there are startups on campus. So they have all this knowledge. So what we did was we actually moved everything online. So we have a entrepreneurship first step course whereby it's a 6-hour course to tell you A to Z about entrepreneurship. And then with that, they actually took an online course, and with that online course, they complete a survey as well as a quiz, and then they move on to do a simple business proposal. So with the simple business proposal, the Sandbox office will actually evaluate them, and if we find them good, they can even be shortlisted for an early admission exercise interview.
Wow.
Yeah, so we go all the way to secondary school, the ITEs, etc. Because Polytechnic is often a next level, a next institute of higher learning that they will explore. So we are full ranging. And the purpose of us setting up the Agile, which is a new space here, is to give students the opportunity to find out more from the startups, to find out more from our industry partner, who is UOB in this case. We have a UOB who has a so-called a hangout at UOB, where the students can chill. We even have our own students who set up a yogurt shop within. It's called Be Your Own Boss. So both UOB and ourselves, we actually judge that competition, and we award the student the opportunity to be their own boss. It may not be act, but if you can sell your yogurt well, who knows, man? You may be the next entrepreneur that we talk about.
Yeah, I know it's been a very busy day for you, and you spoke about Agile to us, a while ago.
Yeah.
So I mean, do you want to just expand a little bit about, who Agile is for,
Yeah.
and I mean.
Yeah, the whole journey begins before COVID, and when COVID struck, and then renovation had to stop. So we have a 10,000 square feet area here, whereby the students, the startups have a chance together with UOB, who has a so-called a learning lab here. So it's a new concept that we brought about whereby we bring the industry into campus. We have our alumni who came back, who are interested to be startup founders. And then we have students who are aspiring to be entrepreneurs. I think the best way is to bring all of these parties together, right? And this space allows them to co-create, to explore opportunities. And if the students have certain issues about starting up their business, we have a financial expert on campus to tell them that, oh, you have to think about your financials. These are the things that you should do. You have to set up an account. If they are in the payments area, they have a finance and payments experts. And then the startups themselves, by situating themselves, they have their own private rooms, all 10 of them. They can come out, and there are cool areas whereby they hang out, whereby there are futsal table. There are a very nice pantry whereby they can collaborate and share ideas. So this is a space that we have dreamt for a long time. It was delayed due to COVID, but I'm very happy to say that we managed to get the work up and get it launched today. So it was launched by Minister Ong Ye Kung today. It just happened a few hours ago. So that's why I was running about ensuring that we could have a nice launch, and then I can share it with you right now, online, real time.
Great. No, congratulations on Agile. And I think it's an open invitation to, the youth out there that, there are a lot of opportunities. You just need to have the right mindset, the right attitude, not shy to, knock your doors and ask people, enough mentors out there, enough experts like all of you to learn from. So I think I'm going to come to Dr. Tan, because I know, amongst all of us here, he probably has the most experience, and he's had a great journey, from being where he was to where he is today. So, as a mentor, and when you work with the youth in your organization, what are some of the advices that you give them at this point, in their career as they start looking at this fintech space?
Okay, I think today's world is not the same as last time, right? Nobody will stay in the same job for the rest of their life, right? It will be very common for people to sort of have multiple jobs in their career, right, in their lifetime. So it's very important for you to have certain skills. If you have the skill, then that skill is yours, and that skill, if you hone it and you are strong in it, then the world is your oyster, right? So I want to say what's special about poly people is that a lot of poly people are very practical, and they have some hard skills. I think that can be developed even further, because once you have that skill, it's like learning how to ride a bicycle, right? Once you have that skill set you aside from other people. So keep that in mind. Second is don't zoom in too fast, right? Today we talk about fintech. Fintech is good. I like fintech and so on. But remember, fintech today, 5 years down the road, there'll be another wave that come along. It could be quantum, it could be good, God knows, whatever. But really, it does not matter. That's the vertical that you play in. But if you are skilled and you have the right attitude and you prepare yourself, no matter what comes, you can handle it, right? So that's I think it would be wrong if somebody says, oh, at Poly, I want to train to be ABC, and they don't want to do that. Because you need more ability to learn, to have that basic skill, so that no matter what comes, you will adapt and you build on it, and then you learn as you go along, right? Yeah, I think that would be the most important message I would give to people. I always tell our people in our company that build this T capability. A T capability means there's one area where you know quite deeply. You're really good at that area. You have a very special skill that sets you aside, but you cannot be just a vertical. Then you're too narrow. The horizontal bar in the T means that you understand how everything is connected to each other. Then when you talk, you understand the whole context. So with that T capability, then you will run a long, long way. Right?
Wow, I'm going to remember the T always now. Very, very useful. Renyi, to come to you, you've been on the corporate side, and I'm sure, you have, and especially on the HR side. So again, what's your advice when you meet, these interns, and what's the kind of, opportunities, and what do you advise them in their career?
Maybe I start with what we do organizationally first. So I think one thing I spoke about was we want to immerse them in like real work and real projects. So I think one biggest thing that we offer our poly interns, right, is the opportunity to get into really doing BAU work, or in instances even like projects. If I could kind of then specify like what advice would we give, actually very much similar to what Dr. Tan say, I'll kind of break it into maybe two things. It's actually the mindset and the skill set. And the skill set piece is, exactly what Dr. Tan said, right? Continuous learning it's extremely important, right? So we've invested organizationally. Ching will know about this, in building out a base of AI skills and machine learning through partnerships with the Sandbox actually on programs. And the whole piece around this is you're never too old or young to learn more, right? And I think that part is really important for the intern to know that at this point in time, you might know everything you know on the knowledge, but there's going to be so much more to learn going ahead. The second thing, of course, would be the mindset piece, and I would argue that's probably the most important, having that growth mindset and the agility to always experiment and dare to do something new. I think organizationally, what we can promise is that the environment that we really want to drive is that spirit to try something, right? And again, like I mentioned, you can fail, right? And not just fail for fail's sake, but I would argue that having people like our poly interns in the organization, it actually builds diversity in the company. And there has been research done, right, where having a diverse team in organizations actually creates more effective outcomes. They solve more complex problems. They actually work better together as well. So it's actually a real competitive advantage, right? So I think my advice to the interns is always be hungry to learn. But there is also that much more if you choose to start to experiment, but with yourself first. and who knows, you might discover what new. And what better way to do it when you are at this point in your journey?
Awesome. Ching, anything you'd like to add there?
Yeah,
You see it differently?
Yeah, I perfectly agree with what Dr. Tan and Renyi have shared. In fact, the growth mindset, the self-directed learning, and continuous learning, and during this whole COVID season, where a lot of training has to be shifted online, and kudos to the team from Prudential. We actually did a virtual data hackathon. Can you imagine? Where all the participants are at their own home, and we could only link up with the Prudential data scientists right in MP campus, together with our School of ICT lecturers who teach on data, who teach on about data scientists, data analysts. So it was really amazing. So I really applaud the Prudential team for taking up the challenge, and how we are overcomers in this COVID situation, and we never stop learning. I think that's the spirit, I think, for the students as well as professionals who are listening out there. You must be hungry to learn, and then build up your core skill sets. And then from there, you can build up other skill sets on top of it.
I think that the learning part doesn't stop at any age. The day you stop learning, there is absolutely. I still remember 5 years ago sitting in a founder's office, and the person telling me fintech, and me asking that person, so what do you mean by fintech? Can you explain? And here we are sitting, in a discussion. I do a lot of work with fintech clients, so he was about, just taking that opportunity and saying, okay, can you tell me a little bit more, and what is this about, and and then learning from there. I don't think there's a single day that goes where we don't ask our clients, well, can you tell us a bit more about what you're talking about? What does this really mean? And unless you have that curiosity, I believe, and unless you keep questioning, there's absolutely no fun in this journey.
I know you're on the right track. And we even take care of our graduates once they leave the campus. In Dr. Tan's case, we have sent graduates who like to work in startup, and then we have the Startup Talent Factory program, whereby graduates who work in startup, the salary are co-funded by the government, so that it's not so heavy on the startup, and they are able to offer competitive salaries just like other companies.
No, I think great. Hopefully a lot of the youth will, take all the advice that, the three of you have given. It's most important. So it comes to, I come to my last question actually, which is again, for the three of you, again, in terms of, takeaway that you would like to convey to the audience. You said a lot about mindset, learning, but something more, which again, you think is different, can make it more fun. Why is this an interesting sector? And what have each of us gained out of it? I think we've all entered it at different points of our life. Some of us very late, but yet we've learned a lot in that journey. So any parting message there, for the youth?
Maybe can I try something?
Yes, Dr. Tan. Yes, from you.
In my experience working with young people, a lot of them actually do not know what working is like. They don't have a sense. They've been in school, in school you do some work, but what is it like working in industry? And actually industry is also quite different, depending on what kind of place you go to work. The skill required, the experience, what experience you have. Actually, there's so much you have to learn, right? There's the hardcore technology aspect is one thing, right? How to code, how to write programs. That's hardcore technology aspect. Then there's a part about communication, right? How do you tell your story? How do you tell people what you want to say? How to present, right? Yeah. And then how to learn new things, how to tell people, how to communicate well. I think all those are things that a person has to pick up, right? So if you can find an environment where you have exposure and you have people who can guide you, then I think you are really lucky, right? Yeah, look for those kind of places, right? I wouldn't say, I'm not trying to say that we have it. I think it depends on who you work with, and the environment in general. But you can find it, I think then you're on your way to learning a lot and be ready for, because a person coming from Poly has got 30 years ahead of them, right? So if they find a good receptacle and they have the right exposure, the future is theirs, right?
Ching?
Yeah, to me is stay curious. Learning is the new pension. Don't be afraid to fail and continuous learning.
Great. Renyi?
Yeah, I know exactly that. And I think, it's, if I link it to the industry that we're in, this is a growth industry, right? There's so much things, there's so many possibilities that we don't even know will exist many years from now, right? So I think for the Polytechnic students who want to come and join the industry, I think you're right at the spot where, like Ching's point, your curiosity actually will create potentially new solutions ahead, right? And I think if there's one space you might be keen to start, I think that's where it is, right? And I think in terms of the greater purpose of helping societies and communities, I think there's so much good that could come out of, deriving whatever we're doing around InsurTech, MagTech, FinTech in this space. So, I mean, if that kind of really piques your interest, I think this would be something I would say it's a great place to start.
No, great, absolutely. And I think if we go back to, where it all started to, where the fintech industry has come today, we had the, digital banking licenses being announced, a lot of opportunities coming there, for everybody. And I think it's also the young recognizing this as another sector that they could really look at. Far less risky than where it was 5 years ago. A lot of companies who have matured, great technologies going out of Singapore, companies who have scaled out. So it just needs to be looked at as just another opportunity there, and interesting companies to work with, to innovate, put your mind, put your brain at it. I'm done with my questions. It's been an absolutely fantastic discussion with the three of you. I'd like to thank you for your time and all the advices that you've given. We look forward to any interesting initiatives coming from Nyan Poly going forward, and for the youth to tap your agile workspace, the programs from Prudential, and all the advice and programs that AiDa is offering the youth. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Anu, for having us.